The video begins in a public restroom. A man enters and uses some tissue while talking on his Bluetooth headset. He hears a strange, piercing noise from his device, but he doesn't seem very worried at this point. In the middle of a crowded Boston airport, the protagonist, Clay Riddell, John Cusack, is trying to call his wife, Sharon. During this time, almost everyone around him is using their cell phones. Suddenly, a mysterious signal, known as the pulse,
travels through all active cell phones. People using their phones instantly turn into mindless, violent zombies. Clay witnesses brutal attacks, people jumping from balconies, banging their heads against walls, and snarling like rabid animals.
As the chaos escalates, Clay immediately flees. He notices that even security guards and police officers have been affected. He sees a chef wearing a headset suddenly go berserk and stab a person. Realizing that the electronic devices are the cause of the transformation, Clay grabs a sharp object for self-defense and continues to run while planes explode on the tarmac outside. Clay heads down to the subway station to evade the madness. There, he meets Tom McCourt, Samuel L. Jackson, a train conductor. Panic has also broken out inside the train. Tom warns the passengers not to use their cell phones. Clay, Tom, and a few other survivors decide to walk through the train tunnels to get away from the airport and find a safer area. While trekking through the dark subway tunnels, the characters introduce themselves. Tom explains that the power has gone out across the city, suggesting that the signal's damage is widespread. Even in the tunnels, they have to fend off attacks from people affected by the pulse. Clay and Tom successfully reach an apartment. Clay tries to call his son using a landline phone, since cell phones are dead and have no signal. However, he receives a garbled text message from his son's number filled with random letters and symbols, implying that his family may have been affected, or that the network has completely collapsed. Two men, Clay and Tom, huddle in a dark apartment. The pulse, a mysterious signal sent through cell phones, has turned anyone using their phone into a mindless, violent phoner. Clay, a graphic novelist, is desperate to find his wife and son, while Tom, a former soldier, provides a grounding, if cynical, perspective. Their uneasy peace is shattered by a frantic pounding on the door. A young woman, Alice, bursts in, covered in blood and wielding a knife. Her eyes are wide with a horror that words can barely capture. She has just killed her own mother, who had turned into one of the mindless attackers. Clay and Tom, though wary, offer her shelter and a chance to wash the literal and metaphorical blood from her hands. As the three of them bond over their shared trauma, a sudden, high-pitched ringing emanates from a phone left in the refrigerator. Outside, the city erupts into chaos once more. People who had seemed normal moments ago suddenly stop, their bodies jerking in unison, responding to a signal only they can hear. From their window, Clay, Tom, and Alice watch in terror as plumes of smoke rise from the city, and the streets are filled with phoners moving with a strange, collective purpose, like a flock of birds or swarm of insects. Realizing they can no longer stay, the trio ventures out into the desolated streets. They witness the true horror of the pulse, people performing bizarre, repetitive actions, others lashing out in mindless violence. They narrowly escape a large horde by hiding behind a discarded shopping cart, watching in silent dread as the phoners swarm and devour two unlucky motorcyclists who cross their path. Their journey takes them away from the city center and into the suburbs. They come across a house adorned with signs warning of armed occupants. Desperate for protection, they break in, only to find a scene of quiet, tragic finality. A family had chosen to take their own lives rather than face the madness outside. In the grim silence of the house, Clay, Tom, and Alice arm themselves with whatever weapons they can find, a shotgun, a handgun, a rifle. And as they prepare to leave, their faces are set with a grim determination. The world they knew is gone, replaced by a nightmare they must now navigate together.
Alice, Tom, and Clay are hunkered down when Alice spots a solitary figure outside. They approach cautiously, finding a young man sitting on a playground swing, his back to them, gently petting a small dog. Alice tries to reach out with a gentle hello, but the boy is unresponsive. As they get closer, Tom's instincts flare. He senses something is wrong. Suddenly, the boy turns, revealing a bloodied, vacant face. He opens his mouth and lets out a bone-chilling, electronic screech that sounds more like a modem than a human. Tom doesn't hesitate. He fires, and the boy falls. The screech was a signal. Within seconds, a massive horde of the phonads, the infected, erupts from the surrounding woods. They don't just run, they move with a terrifying, synchronized purpose. The trio is forced into a desperate, high-stakes flight through the brush and toward a nearby dam. The chase is frantic. Phonads tumble over fences and sprint through the grass like a single predatory organism. Cornered at the edge of the dam, the group manages to find a small, dark crawl space beneath the concrete structures. They press themselves against the walls in breathless silence as hundreds of infected feet thunder directly over their heads. Through a narrow slit in the metal, they watch as the massive crowd passes, realizing for the first time that these creatures are no longer individuals, they are a hive mind. As the sun dips below the horizon, the horde suddenly stops. In an eerie display of synchronization, they all tilt their heads back and emit the electronic screech in unison. Tom and Clay realize they are witnessing a software update. The signal is refining and reprogramming the infected as they stand. Once the sync is complete, the massive column of people begins to march away in perfect robotic order, leaving the trio shaken and horrified. Seeking shelter, the group arrives at a prestigious boarding school, Gayton Academy. They are met by the headmaster, Charles Ardai, and a tech-savvy student named Jordan. The atmosphere is surreal. The school is intact, but the world outside is gone. Ardai explains that the cell signal has effectively erased the human hard drive, leaving the 98% of the brain that we don't use open for a new collective OS. Ardai leads them to the school stadium at night. The sight is nightmarish. Thousands of phonads are lying on the field in a state of suspended animation. Alice demonstrates their sleep mode by poking one with a sword. The creature remains motionless. Jordan points out a haunting detail. Every single person on the field is broadcasting the same faint, tinny music from their mouths. They're not just sleeping, they're a massive organic network, recharging and syncing for the next day. Back in the safety of the headmaster's study, a grim debate unfolds. Ardai views the phonads as the next stage of human evolution, a world without war, privacy, or individuality. However, Tom and Alice see only the end of humanity. Discovering that the school has a gasoline pump and a sprayer truck, they begin to hatch a plan. Alice, driven by the loss of her mother, is adamant they must wait for the sun to go down again and burn the entire sleeping horde to the ground.
The air inside the truck is thick with tension. Clay, his eyes reflecting a desperate sort of courage, takes a long swig of liquor from a crystal decanter. Beside him, Tom, a man of few words and steely resolve, watches the dark road ahead. They are about to do something unthinkable, but in a world gone mad, it is the only way to survive. "Are you sure about this?" Tom asks. Clay's answer is a grim nod. There's no turning back. The massive white tanker truck roars to life, its headlights cutting through the pitch-black night. As it moves, the sound of tires crushing through a sea of bodies fills the air. Thousands of phonies, people whose minds were wiped by the mysterious cellular pulse, lay scattered across the field like discarded dolls. The truck's nozzles open, spraying a fine, relentless mist of gasoline over the unconscious horde. It is a macabre baptism. Nearby, huddled in the shadows, are Alice and a young boy. They watch the tanker with wide, fearful eyes. Alice grips a handgun, her knuckles white. They are the witnesses to a necessary evil. When the boy asks if she's scared, she can barely find the words to answer. They are children of the apocalypse, forced to watch their world burn to save what's left of it. Inside the cab, the reality of the task begins to weigh on Clay. The truck lurches as it grinds over the endless carpet of bodies. Tom urges him to shift into a lower gear, his voice a calm anchor in the chaos. Outside, an older man stands ready. He lights a tennis ball attached to an arrow. With a steady breath, he releases it. The flaming projectile arcs through the sky, a falling star that brings not a wish, but a catastrophe. The moment the flame touches the gasoline-soaked field, the night explodes. A wall of fire erupts, consuming the phonies in a roar of heat and light. The survivors watch, their faces illuminated by the orange glow of the massive pyre. The pulse that took these people's minds is now being answered with fire. But victory comes at a cost. In the chaos and explosions, the older man is lost, leaving the young boy devastated, wailing over the charred remains of his mentor. As the fire dies down to embers, the survivors retreat to the shelter of a drive-in theater's concession stand. Exhausted, they drift into a fitful sleep, only to wake with a shared terror. One by one, they realize they are all dreaming of the same man, a terrifying figure in a red hoodie known as the Traveler. He is a prophet of the apocalypse, a character from Clay's own graphic novel come to life. The boundary between fiction and their horrific reality has completely dissolved. Morning breaks over the drive-in, cold and gray. Outside the snack bar, a mountain of charred, melted cell phones sits as a monument to the technology that destroyed civilization. Just as they prepare to move on, a sound pierces the silence. A phone is ringing. Tom pulls an unknown call from his pocket. They look at the pile of dead technology, realizing that while the phones may be burnt, the signal is still searching for them. The journey continues into the winter. They pass a roadside diner, its roof covered in snow. A billboard looms overhead with a cryptic message. Cashwalk equals no foe. It is a riddle they have yet to solve, a destination or perhaps a warning as they trek deeper into a world that no longer belongs to the living.
They knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Open up, we're Americans," Tom shouted, his breath visible in the freezing air. The door creaked open, revealing a bearded man leveling a pistol at their faces. The tension was thick enough to cut, but the man's expression shifted from hostility to a weary welcome. "Happy hour just started," he deadpanned, lowering the weapon.
Inside, the bar was a warm, dimly lit capsule of the old world. It was inhabited by a few locals who seemed bizarrely untouched by the apocalypse outside. An older woman, dressed in loud prints and sipping wine, greeted them with the enthusiasm of a hostess at a cocktail party. "Oh, visitors," she cooed, pointing at the young boy. "You are so cute." She turned to Clay. "And you, sir, are very cute." Finally, she looked at Tom. "And you, handsome, you give me chills." Tom, ever the pragmatist, scanned the room. "No phoners pass through here?" he asked, referring to the infected hive-mind killers roaming the earth. "Phoners don't like English food," an older man at the bar joked. The bearded bartender, Charles, poured them drinks. For a moment, it felt like a normal Friday night, stripped of the horror waiting outside. The group settled in, seeking answers about the sign on the roof. Charles explained the myth of Cashwhack. "It's up in Maine," he said, leaning over the bar. "An unincorporated area, TR90, no cell service, no signal. They say everyone who hasn't been pulsed is heading there." "We're heading there tomorrow," the older woman chimed in, raising her glass. "It's nice here, though. I'm glad you stopped by." The survivors exchanged looks. It sounded too good to be true, a blind spot in the network that had destroyed humanity, but it was the only hope they had. Tom walked over to an old jukebox, a relic of a simpler time. He scanned the selection and, with a dark sense of irony, pressed the buttons for New Edition's Mr. Telephone Man. As the R&B beat kicked in, Tom took a swig of his drink. "Mr. Telephone Man, there's something wrong with my line." The lyrics floated through the air, a cruel joke in a world where a phone call had literally ended civilization. Tom chuckled darkly, appreciating the absurdity of it all. At the bar, Clay sat with the locals, his mind drifting to the Raggedy Man, the hooded figure appearing in everyone's dreams. He confessed something chilling to Tom and Charles. "I drew him," Clay whispered, staring into the middle distance. "Before all this, in my graphic novel, he represents the ultimate ego, vanity. But the other force, the pulse, that's just pure data, abstraction." Clay felt like he had lost his agency, like a character in a story he hadn't finished writing. "I'm not the kind of guy who draws the devil on a piece of paper," he muttered, rubbing his face. "This isn't a war, it's an extermination." Tom, listening intently, offered his own philosophy. "Good always triumphs over evil. I have to believe that." The mood shifted to a melancholy lull. Alice took the microphone and began to sing along to the karaoke track, her voice soft and haunting. The camera panned over the bar's decorations, stuffed foxes and raccoons, their glass eyes staring blankly, silent witnesses to the end of days. In a quiet booth, Alice sat with Clay. She made a confession. "I saw you before," she said. "I saw you with your son and wife. You looked angry. I judged you for it." Clay nodded, the guilt washing over him. "You were right. I was angry. I hated my job. I hated myself for being a coward and not pursuing my heart. I let that anger drift onto my family." He looked at Alice with intense vulnerability. "I just want to find my son. I want to prove to him that I was right, that I'm special." Alice looked at him with pity and kindness. "You will find him, Clay."
The peace was shattered in an instant. The older woman, Sally, stood near the door. Her expression went blank. A trickle of blood ran from her nose. A high-pitched digital screech erupted, not from a speaker, but seemingly from the air itself, the pulse. The atmosphere in the bar warped. On the television screen, the image of the Raggedy Man flashed. The friendly locals, Sally, her husband, the bartender, suddenly stiffened. Their mouths opened in silent screams as the hive-mind took control. They began to convulse, their humanity erased in seconds. "Run!" Tom screamed. The bar turned into a slaughterhouse. The locals, now phoners, attacked with feral speed. The older man lunged at Clay. The bartender, Charles, grabbed a weapon. Tom raised his shotgun and fired, the blast deafening in the enclosed space. Clay grappled with the older man, throwing him over the bar into the glass bottles. The older woman, Sally, lunged at them with supernatural strength, shrieking a digital noise. Alice was cornered. In the chaos, she was struck hard. Clay grabbed a bottle and smashed it over an attacker's head. Tom fired again, clearing a path to the door. "Get out, go!" They scrambled through the exit, leaving the warmth of the bar behind. The sanctuary had become a trap. They spilled back out into the freezing night, the deafening signal ringing in their ears, reminding them that nowhere was safe.
Clay kneels beside Alice, whose sleep is restless and feverish. He tries to comfort her, whispering reassurances, but when her eyes flutter open, the horror is undeniable. One of her eyes has bled entirely red, a mark of the infection. She stares past him, her voice hollow and detached. "We can make snow," she murmurs, her mind drifting into the hive connection of the phoners. "We can play snake." Her words are nonsensical to Clay, but terrifyingly clear to her. She drifts back into unconsciousness, leaving Clay and the young boy, Jordan, watching in helpless silence. The group, now including Clay, Tom, Alice, and Jordan, encounters a new pair of survivors in the woods, a frantic, wide-eyed man named Ray and his pregnant companion, Denise. Ray is a bundle of nervous energy, his speech rapid and jagged. He explains that the phoners aren't just mindless killers anymore, they are evolving. They don't use phones anymore, Ray says, tapping his temple. The signal is in their heads now. He reveals his survival strategy. He doesn't sleep. He believes the hive mind, led by a figure he calls the president of the internet, infiltrates people's minds through their dreams. By staying awake for 6 days straight, Ray believes he is keeping them out.
Later, by a campfire near Ray's vehicle, a battered ice cream truck, Ray elaborates on his warfare. He and Denise have been hunting the flocks. He explains that at night the infected go dormant, huddled together in massive piles like cattle. "We blow them up," Ray says with a manic grin, sipping an energy drink. He describes how he uses dynamite to take out entire clusters while they reboot. He is unhinged, teetering on the edge of sanity, but he is also their best chance at striking back. The group discovers a lone infected man tied to a picnic bench in the woods with a bag over his head. Denise is feeding him, treating him with a strange, pitying kindness. She sees him as a lost soul, a calf separated from the herd. Ray and Tom are less sympathetic. To them, it's a liability. As Denise tries to feed the creature again, the bag slips. The infected man begins to emit a high-pitched digital screeching noise from his mouth, a living beacon. He's calling them home, Ray realizes with panic. The phoner isn't lost. He's a trap. Chaos erupts. The screeching signal pierces the air. Ray, realizing the main flock is descending upon them, screams for everyone to run. "Get to the truck!" The group scrambles through the dead leaves and winter chill, piling into Ray's ice cream truck just as the shadows in the woods begin to move. Ray drives them away, but suddenly slams on the brakes in the middle of a forest road. The silence in the truck is deafening. Ray stares out the windshield, his face pale. He starts muttering, "It's not allowed! It's not allowed!" He turns to Clay, his eyes filled with a terrifying resignation. "He's in my head," Ray whispers, referring to the leader of the infected. "He's digging in." Ray knows he can't go on. His mind is being compromised. He decides to make his final stand right there. Ray steps out of the truck, wrapped in a vest wired with explosives. Clay tries to stop him, but sees that Ray is already gone, lost to the hallucinations and the voice in his head. Ray stumbles toward a clearing near a stream. In his delirium, he looks up and screams at the sky, believing he sees the president of the internet, the man in the red hoodie, mocking him. "You made a mistake," Ray yells at his invisible tormentor. "I am the artist." With a final defiant scream, Ray triggers the detonator. A massive fireball consumes the clearing, shaking the ground and sending a plume of smoke into the gray sky. From the safety of the truck, Clay and the others watch in solemn silence as Ray's chaotic journey comes to an explosive end, buying them a little more time to survive.
Clay wakes up disoriented, his face pressed against the cold, dead leaves of a forest floor. The world is silent, gray, and bleak. He pulls himself to his feet, a look of grim determination settling on his face. Down a deserted suburban street, a surreal sight approaches. A bright teal ice cream truck, Mr. Sunday. Inside the truck, Clay sits in the passenger seat, while Tom, an older survivor in tactical gear, drives. "I'll just be here. I'll come back," Clay says, trying to spare his friend. "No, I'm coming with you," Tom insists. Clay shakes his head, stopping him. "No, stay with them. I have to do this alone." He steps out, leaving Tom behind the wheel. Clay walks up the driveway of a white suburban house. It stands eerily quiet. Tom watches him from the truck, handgun raised, covering Clay's back. Clay steps onto the porch and enters the front door. The house is dark, curtains drawn. "Johnny? Sharon?" he calls out softly, but only silence answers. He finds a framed photo of his son hugging a pumpkin. The nostalgia hits him hard. In the kitchen, Clay finds what he was looking for, but it breaks his heart. On the refrigerator, spelled out in colorful magnetic letters, is a message. "Dear Dad, I hope you're alive. Mom is one of them. I am going to Cashwalk. Please come. Love, Jonathan Conn Riddell."
Clay heads upstairs to his son's bedroom. He opens a drawer and pulls out a red hoodie. He buries his face in the fabric, inhaling the scent of his lost child. Composing himself, Clay hears a noise above. He moves to the hallway and looks up at the attic hatch. He climbs the stairs into the gloom. A box fan spins lazily in the window, casting strobing shadows. Clay unlocks the door and opens it. Suddenly, a figure lunges from the darkness. It is a phoner, a woman, snarling and feral. She tackles Clay, pinning him to the floor. They struggle violently in the dust. She is unnaturally strong, her mouth open in a scream that emits a digital static-like screech. Clay fights for his life, kicking and punching, but she overpowers him. Just as the infected woman prepares to deliver a fatal blow, a gunshot rings out. The woman collapses off of Clay. Tom stands at the attic entrance, his gun smoking. He followed Clay despite the orders. Clay scrambles back, breathing heavily, and looks at the dead body. It is his wife, Sharon. He stares in horror and sorrow. She had been waiting in the dark.
Later, downstairs, Clay sits at the table, staring at a silver flip phone and a handgun. Tom enters. Clay explains that the phone was left by a man named Ray before he committed suicide. Ray had said to call a number when the time comes. "When is that?" Tom asks. "At the end," Clay replies. Clay reveals his plan. He believes the signal leading everyone to Cashwalk is a trap, a way to gather the survivors for slaughter, but he has to go because his son is there. Back at the ice cream truck, Clay is wiring blocks of C4 explosives. He is turning the truck into a massive mobile bomb. He intends to drive into Cashwalk and destroy the source of the signal to save his son. A young teenage boy, Jordan, watches Clay work. Clay hands Jordan a can of yellow spray paint. "Take this," Clay says. "I want you to spray T, J, and D for Tom, Jordan, and Denise on the side of the road, every few miles, on the left side so I can see it." Jordan looks at him with teary eyes. "Don't go there. It's a trick. You're going to die." Clay grabs the boy and hugs him tight. "I'm not Orpheus," Clay whispers, referencing the Greek myth of the man who went to the underworld to retrieve his love. "Take care of yourself."
Clay climbs into the rig truck, ready to drive into the heart of the darkness to save his son, leaving his makeshift family behind.
The air is thick with the chill of winter and the weight of impending loss. Clay Riddell stands before his group of survivors, Tom McCourt, Alice, and young Jordan. He embraces Tom, a man who has become his brother-in-arms through this apocalypse. "I'm glad I knew you, Tom McCourt," Clay says, his voice breaking with finality. He isn't going with them to safety. He has to go back. He has to find his son, Johnny. With a heavy heart, he climbs into the battered Mr. Softy ice cream truck, watching his friends disappear into the trees one last time. Night falls, swallowing the world in darkness. Clay drives the ice cream truck alone down a desolate highway. The cheerful jingle of the truck is absent, replaced by the hum of the engine and the drumming of rain. He is heading toward Cashwalk, the source of the signal that turned humanity into a hive mind of mindless killers. Clay reaches his destination, and the sight stops his breath. In a dark valley, illuminated by flashes of lightning and the eerie glow of a massive cell tower, stands a horde. Thousands upon thousands of phoners, the infected, are walking in a tight, hypnotic circle around the tower. The truck grinds to a halt at the base of the tower. Suddenly, the swirling mass stops. Silence falls over the valley. Standing directly in front of the truck is the Raggedy Man, the red-hooded figure that has haunted Clay's dreams and led the swarm. He stares Clay down with dead, knowing eyes. The trap has been sprung. Clay is surrounded, the center of attention for 1,000,000 murderous minds. Clay knows this is the end. He rigs the truck, which is packed with explosives. He pulls out a cell phone, the detonator. His hands shake. He looks out the window, and his heart stops. He sees his son, Johnny, standing next to the Raggedy Man. But then, reality seems to warp. The Raggedy Man disappears. Johnny runs to the window. He looks normal. He isn't infected. Clay pulls his son into the cabin, hugging him tightly. With tears in his eyes and his son in his arms, Clay dials the number to detonate the bomb. He chooses to destroy the tower, the swarm, and himself to save the world. Click. The signal is sent. A massive fireball erupts from the ice cream truck. The explosion consumes the tower, the Raggedy Man, and the center of the hive. The flames roar into the night sky, a beacon of defiance against the signal. The roar of the fire fades into the gentle rustling of leaves. The darkness is replaced by the warm, golden light of an autumn afternoon. Clay is walking down a set of train tracks in a peaceful forest. His son, Johnny, is by his side. They are safe. Clay spots a marking on a tree, TJD, painted in yellow, a sign that Tom, Jordan, and Denise made it to safety. Clay smiles, a look of pure relief washing over him. He has saved his son. He has caught up with his friends. It is the perfect ending. Clay is not in Canada. He is not with his friends. He is walking in the mud, trapped in the hypnotic circle with the rest of the swarm. His mouth hangs open, emitting the same chirping, electronic noise as the other monsters. The happy ending was just a hallucination generated by the signal, a digital dream to keep him docile. Clay has been assimilated. He is just another cell in the network now.